Play Projects.
Now I'm going to attach the sleeve for the short sleeve garment. And here's one of my sleeve pieces. I've zigzagged the two underarm edges here on either side, and I've added a basting stitch, a little less than 1/4 inch along the top edge of the sleeve. The basting stitch is just a super long machine stitch, so the longest machine stitch that you can make, mine goes up to the number 4. I stitch this with a 4 length stitch. And what this does, it helps with what's called the ease of the sleeve, which just helps this curved edge fit into the curved edge of the rounded armhole. And it just helps the fabric ease around that curve. For the most part, you shouldn't need to use it. It does its work on its own, just right as it is. But if you do, as you're fitting it, you're going to tug on these threads at the end. So make sure not to trim those down too short when you do your basting stitch. Keep those long because they could come in handy later. And make sure not to backstitch along those edges. Those you want to keep nice and loose. Now you'll see on your sleeve, you've got your notches. You've got a 1-notch side, you've got a 2-notch side, and you've got a center notch, which is just 1 notch at the top. And those are going to match with the front and the back of the garment. Just like in the armhole facings, the 1 notches on this pattern and with most patterns is going to match with the front of the garment, and the 2 notches are going to match with your back. And now I'm going to pin this onto the body of my garment. So I'm going to match this 1 notch up with the 1 notch here. I'm going to start at the bottom of the sleeve edge and pin that in. Going around this little curve up to where my notches line up. One more pin in here to keep these edges together. Now I'm going to skip ahead and I'm going to match my center notch with my shoulder seam. And then I'll move around to the back. And I'll go from the edge to the middle. And then once I've got these parts pinned in place, we'll do whatever easing we need to do to fit the curve of the sleeve into the curve of the armhole. Pin in here. And now we want to make this fit right in here. And you'll see there's just a little bit of extra fabric there. So I'm just going to tug my thread here a little bit. What you want for this particular garment, we don't really want to have any gathers showing in our sleeve. So hopefully what this can do for you is just squeeze that fabric in there, but not give you any actual puckers in the sleeve. You might end up with something little, and don't worry about that. But for the most part, it should still give you a nice flat seam edge. Just allows a little bit of a better fit. Pull that and just push those around. And then once we've got this all pinned in, we'll sew along this edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure to adjust your tension on your machine so that you're back to your regular stitch length after you've done your basting stitch. And we will backstitch at the beginning and the end of attaching the sleeve. So I've sewn my sleeve to the body of the shirt, right along here with my 1/4 inch seam allowance. And after I sewed my seam, I finished the edge with a zigzag stitch, and this time I grabbed both ends of my seam allowance in that stitch. These can be, you want to press these as one unit, so stitching them together as one works really well. So I've got a zigzag stitch that goes all the way around my seam allowance, and then I've pressed my seam allowance and the sleeve away from the body of the garment. So everything is facing towards the end of the sleeve.